This is Plant-Based Briefing. What is plant-based meat? And Stanford Medicine study shows nutrition benefits of plant-based meat by Bruce Friedrich at the Good Food Institute at gfi.org. And I'm your host, Marian Erickson, and this is the curated content plant-based podcast where I narrate articles with permission on a variety of topics related to healthy, compassionate, and sustainable living in about 10 minutes every weekday. And I have a favor to ask. I'm trying to grow the podcast to expand the reach, and one of the best ways to do that is through word of mouth. So whatever social media platforms you use, if you could find the podcast, Plant-Based Briefing, and interact with the posts by liking and especially commenting and sharing, that really helps it to reach others. You can find the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. So if you could comment, share, interact on the posts as often as you can, it really helps it to become more visible to others. Thank you so much. And today's post is from the Good Food Institute. It's an international nonprofit. They're reimagining meat production in order to make the global food system better for the planet, people, and animals. They focus on what are called alternative meat proteins, which include plant-based meat, cultivated meat, and fermentation. They understand that with these alternative proteins, we can mitigate the environmental impact of our food system, decrease the risk of zoonotic disease, and ultimately feed more people with fewer resources. Visit gfi.org for more information. And now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. What is plant-based meat? And Stanford Medicine study shows nutrition benefits of plant-based meat by Bruce Friedrich at gfi.org. What is plant-based meat? Plant-based meat is produced directly from plants. Instead of relying on an animal to convert plants into meat, we can make meat more efficiently by skipping the animal and turning plant ingredients directly into meat. Like animal-based meat, plant-based meat is composed of protein, fat, vitamins, minerals, and water. Next-generation plant-based meat looks, cooks, and tastes like conventional meat. Where does plant-based meat fit in the alt-protein landscape? Plant-based meat is the cornerstone of alternative proteins in the United States and around the world. Alternatives to meat like tofu and tempeh have been around for thousands of years. The plant-based meat industry in the United States dates back to the 19th century, and several of today's leading plant-based meat companies were established in the 1970s to 1990s. However, the plant-based meat category remained small and relatively stagnant until recently, with the market largely limited to vegans and vegetarians. The plant-based meat market has expanded significantly in the past several years as companies produce plant-based burgers and other products that are virtually indistinguishable from conventional meat. This biomimicry approach began in 2012 with the launch of Beyond Meat's chicken strips, and it really took off with the 2016 launch of the Impossible Burger and the Beyond Burger, both of which have succeeded in mainstream fast food outlets. Why is plant-based meat important? Like cultivated meat and fermentation-derived products, plant-based meat is better for the planet, people, and animals. Analyses of the environmental impact of plant-based meat show that plant-based meat production uses 72 to 99% less water and 47 to 99% less land. Further, it causes 51 to 91% less water pollution and emits 30 to 90% less greenhouse gas emissions. By transitioning to a plant-based meat and other alternative proteins, we can use far fewer natural resources and enable entire ecosystems and the biodiversity those systems support to recover, function, and thrive. Plant-based meat production does not require any antibiotics. This helps address the broad overuse of antibiotics in meat production. According to the New York Times, in the United States, between 70 and 80% of antibiotics sold are consumed by farm animals. On our current trajectory, we are rapidly creating antibiotic-resistant superbugs and risk causing the end of working antibiotics. By shifting to alternative proteins like plant-based meat, we can significantly decrease antibiotic use in our food production and keep antibiotics working for human health and well-being. By taking animals out of the equation, plant-based meat also significantly lowers the risk of future pandemics. What needs to be done to advance plant-based meat? The research landscape for plant-based meat offers tremendous scientific opportunity. High-fidelity plant-based meat that appeals to meat eaters is a relatively recent innovation. Although tofu, tempeh, and seitan have existed for centuries, we've only recently discovered how to produce plant-based meat that offers a nearly indistinguishable sensory experience as a conventional burger or chicken nugget. Relative to other scientific disciplines like clean energy, very little R&D has been conducted in the plant-based meat field. This field offers great opportunities for scientists seeking novel research topics that can make a significant positive impact on the future of food. Stanford Medicine study shows nutrition benefits of plant-based meat. A new Stanford School of Medicine study on the effects of plant-based meat compared to animal-based meat shows nutrition benefits for plant-based meat. In August 2020, the Stanford School of Medicine published the first significant study to directly compare plant-based meat to animal-based meat, a critical milestone for alternative proteins. The 16-week randomized crossover trial published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition compared consumption of Beyond Meat's chicken, beef, and pork to organic animal-based versions of the same products. Participants in the swap meat study consumed 2 or more servings per day of plant-based or animal-based meat every day for 8 weeks each. The authors found that consuming the plant-based meat products led to a statistically significant positive impact on bad cholesterol and weight. Notably, lead author Dr. Christopher Gardner, a professor at Stanford School of Medicine and director of the Stanford Prevention Research Center, pointed out that the authors didn't expect to see a statistically significant impact on weight in just 8 weeks, with participants losing 2 pounds with consistent caloric intake after the plant-based meat portion of the study. The study indicated that overall dietary levels of protein and sodium were the same on both diets, that fiber consumption was higher when eating plant-based meat, and that saturated fat consumption was lower when eating plant-based meat instead of animal-based meat. The study's results will not have surprised anyone who was paying attention. Where nutrition science is concerned, there's a general consensus that we should cut back on saturated fat and cholesterol and eat no trans fats at all. We should also eat more complex carbohydrates and more fiber, avoid excess sodium, and maintain a healthy weight. Plant-based meat products have no cholesterol or trans fats and almost always have the same or less saturated fat than their animal-based counterparts. They also have complex carbs and fiber, where animal meat has neither. They're usually higher in sodium, but generally not by much when compared to prepared animal products. This is why the Stanford study found no difference in sodium intake based on the consumption of animal as opposed to plant-based meat. The Stanford study focused on Beyond Meat, which joined the National Institutes of Health in funding the trial. But it's worth noting that Impossible Foods products are similarly better than their animal counterparts in terms of macronutrients. For example, the Impossible Burger has the same amount of protein as 80% lean beef, the same amount of saturated fat, less overall fat, and about twice the iron. Impossible Sausage and Impossible Pork offer 50 to 70% more protein as a percentage of calories and more than 3 times the iron when compared to conventional sausage and pork. All Impossible products also contain no trans fat or cholesterol, both of which are inherent in conventional beef, and plenty of complex carbs and fiber, where conventional meat has neither. Although this is the first significant study to directly compare plant-based to animal-based meat, macronutrient analysis has long supported the study's findings. That's why Dr. Kim Williams, former president of the American College of Cardiology, frequently talks about the positive results he experienced when he switched from chicken and fish to plant-based meat in 2003, including an LDL cholesterol level that dropped 80 points once he made the switch. Williams writes, a decade into his plant-based meat journey, one of my favorite sampling venues is the new Tiger Stadium, Comerica Park in Detroit, where there are 5 vegan items, including an Italian sausage that is hard to distinguish from animal meat until you check your blood pressure. Dr. Williams' experience has been supported by the new Stanford School of Medicine swap meat study. As Dr. Joe Pedro Ferreira from the Clinical Research Center of Nancy, France explained, the weight reduction also points toward the overall metabolic benefit of plant-based meat versus animal meat. If 8 weeks of plant-based meat instead of animal-based meat can have such a positive impact on heart disease indicators and weight, imagine what a permanent switch could do. At GFI, we hope this Stanford School of Medicine study will be the first of many to study the health benefits of plant-based meat. You just listened to What is Plant-Based Meat? And Stanford Medicine Study Shows Nutrition Benefits of Plant-Based Meat by Bruce Friedrich at gfi.org. And I'm your host, Marian Erickson. To read the results of the study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition or for Stanford Medical's press release, see the link to the original post in the show notes. Thanks for listening.